great to be with you guys today. It is an honor and a privilege to hang out with you guys. Today, I want to talk about the Disney cult.
What?
Controversial topic. Might be a little bit emotional for some of you guys, but I think there is definitely a cult around Disney. And when I say Disney in this video, it's going to be specifically about Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Why would Disney World even be an emotional topic at this point, right? What would drive cult-like behavior for a theme park? Well, a couple of things. You know, Disney's a very smart company. They own things like Star Wars and Disney Princesses and Marvel and Frozen and The Princess and the Frog. All these properties, these intellectual properties and things that we all grew up with and our kids love, and we all have an emotional tie to the things associated with those at the theme parks. A lot of us grew up going to Magic Kingdom and Epcot, and so there's an emotional tie there. We took our kids there. We grew up there. And Disney World has had to make some major adjustments really over the past couple of years because of everything that's going on in the world. And you could argue, have these adjustments been necessary? Have they overdone it? Are they doing too much cost cutting? Are they taking away too many experiences? Is it getting too expensive? So all of these things wrapped into each other create a lot of emotion. Add to that the fact that Disney costs a lot of money. This video is actually, or I wanted to jump on here and actually talking about the money thing for two different reasons. One, we released on this channel a video back, this is January 2022 and December of 2021, December 29th, I think. We released a video, and I've got my notes here, called Disney Does Not Want Poor People, Why We Stopped Going to Disney World. And that video was really about an alternative resort. At that time, we were filming directly from XCARET, which is a beautiful resort in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And that was our second time going. And every time we went, both of those times, we felt like, wow, for the price and the setup of the parks and what we're getting for our money and the accommodations, this is really comparable to Disney. And in some ways, it's superior. Not in every way, but in some ways, it's superior. So we felt like this is something we need to educate our viewers on. You guys should check this out. If you're spending thousands of dollars going to Disney World, you got to look at XCARET. Now, some people don't want to hear that, right? Some people, and we saw some of this in the comments, not a lot of it, but you'll see stuff like this, especially when you go to blog posts. Some people don't want to hear that, hey, you should go somewhere else, or Disney costs too much, or you're not getting enough for your money. And that's where the cult comes in. So I'll ask you guys in the comments, do you think there is a cult around Disney? And maybe I'm a member of the cult. You know, I'm going to talk about our family history. I think you could argue that we're members of the Disney World cult, and we might continue to be members of the Disney World cult. I'll let you guys make your own judgment as we go through this. So that's the first reason I wanted to make this video, as a follow-up to that previous video about XCARET and talking about, you know, does Disney want poor people? The second reason is we do have a history of vlogging at Disney. We had a Disney on a Dime YouTube channel. I will link it below. There's still a lot of great hints and tips that you can use from that channel. The videos we shot a couple of years ago were basically, or really all about finding value and bargains, a lot of those videos at Disney World in Florida. So they're more valid now than I think ever before. So definitely check out our Disney on a Dime YouTube series. I will link it below. There's also a newsletter I will link below that also has a lot of our money saving tips, a lot of our favorite hotels and properties. So again, we're still 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the Disney code. You see my magic bands here. I wanted to follow up on, you know, kind of that Disney on a Dime YouTube series. And again, we still film there. You know, we filmed in XCARET in December of 2021. Back in September of 2021, we filmed a couple of lives, right? We went to Disney World and did a couple of lives directly from Disney. And I think we did quite a few in 2021. So, you know, we're still 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We're kind of in the cult, but although we still love Disney and Orlando in general and Universal and Legoland and all that Orlando has to offer, I do think we would be remiss if we don't talk about some of the shortcomings that we see. And not only the shortcomings, but we also want to be solution oriented, right? We want to have solutions. The whole reason we filmed at XCARET is, you know, we can complain all day about what any company is or is not doing. At a certain point, we got to have solutions and recommendations and other things. So throughout this video, I'm going to, you know, and I know, you know, I don't think Disney's watching this video, but I'm gonna talk about the things I think that Disney should do. You guys, please comment down below if you think this is something Disney should do. This is what I think Disney should do differently. And also comment about what you think Disney is doing right? Not all of this video is gonna be anti-Disney, trust me. We're gonna get into some of the things that Disney is doing right. But let's start out, and I think I'm gonna talk about 5 or 6 things. Things that I think that are shortcomings that, you know, if you're in the Disney cult, you may or may not see them as shortcomings. We can have that debate. But let's talk about the first thing, which is gonna be value. Now notice I'm saying value. I'm not saying price. We're gonna talk about price in a little bit. I wanna talk about value. What does value mean? Value is quite simply what you get for the money. It's not so much what I pay for something, it is what I pay for something worth the money? One of the things a lot of people are saying is, well, Disney wants, you know, rich people, they want upper middle class. All right, that's all well and good. Let's take that at face value. Let's say that's true. What you gotta remember is people that are in a certain demographic are going to have very, very, very high expectations. If I'm paying $10,000 for a vacation, for example, I'm gonna want $10,000 worth of value. So we're gonna discuss value. And when we put the XCARET video up back in December, that triggered some of you. A lot of you said, you know, why are you talking about Disney and poor people? Disney has never wanted poor people. And I actually agree with that. I don't have an argument with that. What I would argue is that you're right, Disney has never been cheap, but I think there was a time when you got more value for your money. Let me give you an example. And to give you that example, I'm gonna talk a little bit about our history at Disney. We've been going to Disney for over 20 years, even before we had my son. We've been going to Disney for over 20 years. My first time going was technically like 1982, 83 with my parents. I think they had just built Epcot. I barely remember it. I had fun, but you know how that is. So basically as a family, we've been going since roughly 1999. Our son Chase was born in 2003. He's 18 now. We're gonna post a lot of our old pictures. You'll see we've been going a long time. You'll see pictures of Chase when he's like 2 or 3 years old. Chase is now 18. He's 2 inches taller than me now. So we've been going a long time. You see, we're season pass holders. I got on my Magic Bands. We are Magic Band and season pass holders, and we don't live in Atlanta. I mean, we don't live in Orlando. We live in Atlanta. That's a big commitment. It's one thing to buy a season pass and be local. It's another thing to buy a season pass and you have to fly or drive. So that tells you our commitment. Even my wedding band that I have on is from the Italy Pavilion at Epcot. So why do I say all that? We've been going a long time. And I remember when Chase was a baby, he was into 3 things a lot. Like he loved, there were 3 things that he loved. It's a lot of times toddlers they'll be fascinated by certain things. Chase really loved dinosaurs, which he got plenty of at Animal Kingdom. He really loved Donald Duck, like that was his dude. And he really, really loved trains. So one of the things that we used to do for free when we would go back in this would probably be around 2005, 2006, 2007, we would resort hop. We would go to Polynesian or Grand Floridian, especially during the winter season, beautiful gingerbread house, beautiful Christmas decorations. We wouldn't necessarily stay at those resorts, but we would resort hop and go to Contemporary, Polynesian, Grand Floridian, I can barely get out, Floridian, all of those resorts. And we would just ride the monorail because again, Chase loved trains. So it was free entertainment because we could resort hop, he could ride the train. And at that time he was young, so when you have young children, it can be you can't necessarily be in the park all day, it's just tough. So it was a nice break, it was a nice respite, but we were still able to get that Disney magic for free. Now it's almost impossible to resort hop. They have locked down the resorts so much that it's really a pain. Now you could argue, and this is where we get into the cult debate, I certainly understand that Disney has reasons, especially given the current climate, to do that, but they had started that even before 2020, right? They had started locking down the resorts more and more, making it more restrictive. And I always felt like even if you're not staying at a resort, I should be able to go and experience it without necessarily having to make a meal reservation. And a lot of times, even when we went to the resort, we would still, you know, Chase would want to stop by the gift shop and buy, you know, a toy train or a Donald Duck plush toy. So they were still getting their money. But now it is so restricted, it is very difficult to do things like park hop. I would also say, you know, if you look at things like just parking, right? Parking is $25. That is ridiculous. That is, and that I should probably save that for the price section that we're going to talk about later, but I'm going to lump that under value because now I have to pay over $100 for a theme park ticket and then $25 for parking, and then if I eat in the park, so you're probably looking at $200 a day per person. Disney parks, theme parks are great. I don't know that they're worth $200 a day. I'm gonna draw the line and say they're not. You know, Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, Epcot, $200 a day. I don't know. Also, when we think about things like I just talked about Hollywood Studios, I think there were more experiences like Osborne Family Lights. They don't have that anymore, but that was a beautiful light festival that we went to, I believe, for free at Hollywood Studios during the holiday season. Again, that type of value is just missing. You don't have those little small perks and just little things that you could do. I remember there was one year, it was an anniversary. I think it was like the year of a million dreams or something like that. And because Chase went on his birthday, he got like a free $50 gift card from Disney. Just, you know, by him going there and us spending the week there, they gave us a free $50 gift card and him celebrating his birthday. So I think some of the value is missing, and you miss a lot of those small perks and touches. For example, when we were at XCARET, I remember one day we were hanging out at the resort and they just randomly brought out a cart that was selling street corn right on the kind of their boardwalk type area. XCARET, well, the whole XCARET is kind of set up like a boardwalk, but if you're familiar with the boardwalk at Disney, XCARET is kind of set up like that, where you can walk around the lakes and the beaches and all. There's all kind of carts and restaurants. So they just had one day just a random cart where you could eat Mexican street corn for free. So it's little perks like that. And ask yourself, how much did that street corn cost XCARET? Corn is cheap, right? It was street corn. They boiled it. They put some seasoning on it, and that was a free perk. You don't have a lot of those little perks like Osborne Family Lights or being able to park hop, resort hop easily and ride the monorail that you used to have. So I would argue that the value is largely missing. You know, there was value in getting free magic bands. All my magic bands, I've never paid for a magic band. These are very old. I think these are like the Generation 1 magic bands. So these are really old. These are the newer ones. I got all our magic bands for free because we were season pass holders. Now you have to pay for magic bands. By the way, let me know in the comments. We want to keep this video interactive. For those of you that watch the channel, why are my magic bands orange and green? Let me know. That's another tie to Florida that we have, but let me know about that. So again, I think it goes back to value. I also think the quality of the food, right? You don't get the value for the food that you're used to. The food used to be a lot better. Just being blunt, the food at XCARET, which was much better than the food we've had here at Disney recently. The exception being, you know, Disney Springs and Epcot, they're always going to be, you know, I think pretty good food wise, but I think the theme park food and some of the quick service food has lost a lot of its quality. So again, value for the money. The food was better. We used to love eating at Chef Mickey's. That was where Chase spent most of his birthdays. When I talk about us being in the Disney code, almost all of my birthdays and all of Chase's birthdays were spent at Disney. So let me know in the comments if we should still be spending our birthdays, if we're still getting the value for the money, or should we leave the Disney cult and go do something else like XCARET. And this might be the most controversial topic, and that is crowds. I want to talk about crowd management at Disney World. Now again, to put this in context, I got to go back through my own family's history. For the longest time, as I mentioned, we were season pass holders, and we would typically go to Orlando 3 times a year. Because remember, that's a big commitment. If you buy a season pass, and I think I did the calculation when I was buying season passes, for us to get our money back, to make our money's worth, we would have to go from Atlanta to Orlando for vacation at least 3 times a year. So what we would typically do is go once in the spring, sometimes around Chase's birthday, once in the fall, typically either around my birthday, which is in September, or October for like a Halloween thing. And we would go during the holidays, typically around the Christmas holiday. So typically 3 times a year. A couple of times we managed to do 4 times a year. Sometimes we managed to go twice in the spring. And what we would typically do in the summer, we would try to go somewhere else, either overseas or to a national park like a Yellowstone or a Grand Canyon, or somewhere overseas or to the Caribbean. So that was our typical game plan. And early on, the crowds at Disney was never an issue because we were going in the off season. Chase was homeschooled. That afforded us the privilege of going during the off season. I literally remember going, let's just throw out a month, maybe February or September, in what used to be the off season. There is no off season anymore at Disney. And waiting like 10 minutes to ride Space Mountain, like literally walking on the Space Mountain. You can't do that anymore, right? One of the reasons we loved XCARET is, and it was, you know, there were people there, there were crowds, but it never felt crowded. We never had to wait longer than 10 minutes to do an activity. The longest we had to wait is the zip line course that Chase and I went on. That was maybe 30 minutes to an hour, but that was well worth it. That was like bucket list zip lining, you're 10 stories up. So that's to be expected. And you have to go through a whole safety harness thing. The crowds at Disney World have gotten ridiculous. Now, what you're probably saying is, well, Disney can't help that. I'm going to debate that a little bit. I saw years ago, probably a decade ago, that Disney and even Universal was guilty of this, building a lot of hotels, right? They saw the popularity, so a lot of hotels have sprung up in Orlando over the past few years because they recognized the capacity. But the theme parks did not grow nearly as rapidly. So they saw that it was increasing, but they didn't bother to expand the theme parks, at least not in any meaningful way, because it's cheaper to build a hotel than it is a theme park. We used to go and do things like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween. I mentioned Osborne Family Lights. It is so crowded and so expensive that we haven't done things like that in years because of the crowds, because of the way it sells out. And look, I want Disney to be successful, but what I would say is, you know, Disney World opened, I think, in 1971, right? And as much of a visionary as Walt Disney was, I don't think he anticipated 20 million people visiting Magic Kingdom. Actually, it's actually more than 20 million, but let's say average the past few years it's been 20 million, right? The footprint of Magic Kingdom really hasn't changed much since 1971. So what's the solution? We got to talk about solutions. And this is where it's going to get controversial. If I were the CEO of Disney, the first thing I would say is we're going to increase the size, the footprint of Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, probably Animal Kingdom even, around 50%. The parks just aren't big enough. I'm not necessarily saying that all of that needs to be ride space, although I'm going to talk about rides in a minute. Some of that just needs to be green space. People cannot be on top of each other, which is very important now because we've all got to stay apart from each other a lot more. More restaurants, more places to eat. The previous topic I talked about value. I don't think there are enough places to eat, for example, in Magic Kingdom. I just don't think there are enough. It's always extremely crowded whenever you try to eat. That's not really safe in this day and time to be that bunched up against people. So just expand the parks. Give me more breathing room. Give me more space to breathe. Now, I said that doesn't have to be all rides when you talk about expansion, but we do need to add some more rides. One of my criticisms of Disney World, and they've always been like this, and I understand why, but they've got to change with the times. It takes them a very, 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 very long time to build new rides. I feel like Tron has been under construction and Guardians of the Galaxy over at Epcot have been under construction forever. Now, I get that Disney rides are very unique, but I would argue that they're not as unique as they used to be because Universal is on their tail. How can they develop rides more quickly? This is going to be controversial. I think Disney World, Disney as a company needs to duplicate some of their rides. What does that mean, Eric? Well, let me give you an example. There's a Cars attraction at Disneyland, which is basically a duplicate of Test Track at Epcot. Test Track, and they're both, I think they call them slot racers. Very advanced technology. At least when it came out, this was very advanced technology. I think it actually uses the technology that like aircraft carriers use to like push planes, launch planes off the deck to create that high acceleration. But the Cars ride at Disneyland, Test Track, basically the same ride. Same design, same engineering. Theming is obviously different. There is no Cars attraction at Disney World at all. Not a ride. Not that I can think of. Let me think. No, there isn't one. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I know, obviously we have the theming at our Art of Animation, but there is no Cars ride. So Why not take that ride that's at Disneyland and put it at, you can't put it at Epcot because it would be the same ride at the same park, just with different theming. It would be the same as Test Track. I think you could put it at Magic Kingdom. I think you could put it at Hollywood Studios. I think you could have that exact same ride. Now, 5-10 years ago, I would have said don't do that because everything at Disney has to be unique and super special and super cool, and you can't have the same ride at 2 different parks in the same location. We've moved beyond that. The crowds at Disney are just so nuts. You gotta give people something else to do. You need a Cars Land in Orlando to pull away some of those crowds. And I would put it probably at Magic Kingdom. I think Magic Kingdom suffers the most from capacity. And that's just one example, right? I think there are a lot of rides they could do. And Disney kind of does that, right? The Tron ride was brought over from, you know, a Disney park over in Asia, right? So they do that today. They got to do more of that. And they got to do it quicker. I'm an engineer. I went to college for mechanical engineering. So trust me, I get what it takes to the project and the investment that it takes to build something like a roller coaster. It's typically a one-off. You don't build, you know, roller coasters every day. It's not something that's mass produced. But I think for Disney to stay in the same direction and to continue to drive those crowds, they got to just make the parks bigger. One of the things to keep in mind, I think Disney is very much taking advantage of the fact that it is very difficult to travel outside of the country right now. It's not impossible. We went down to XCARET in Mexico, but it's difficult. And I wonder what happens when people do have more options. And again, that goes back to value. If I have $10,000, and that's a lot of money to spend, and I can go other places, why am I necessarily going to go to a very, 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 very crowded theme park? The crowds in Orlando have just gotten ridiculous, almost unworkable. Let me know. I think some people handle crowds better than others. Let me know in the comments if the crowds bother you, if you think they're doing enough. We're going to talk a little bit here in a minute about Genie and some of the mobile apps and the Lightning Lane. We'll get into that. I know that's one way to address it, but let me know if you think they're doing enough. And let me know how crowd tolerant you are. I will be honest, we did get a little spoiled as a family from going, you know, 10 years ago when there was an off season and you could go when it wouldn't be crowded. So maybe I'm spoiled, maybe we're spoiled, maybe I'm wrong, maybe we should be willing to wait an hour and a half. Let me know in the comments. All right, now let's talk about theming because we're talking about theme parks. One of the comments that I saw most on the XCARET video was that a lot of you guys said, hey Eric, it's not fair to compare XCARET and Disney World. They're not the same, you can't really compare the two. I don't disagree with that statement. What I would say is this: I think at the end of the day, Disney World is Disney World. There is nothing like Disney World, and they're actually taking advantage of that, and we'll get into that. Universal is obviously what comes closest, but there is nothing like Disney World. What I would say is this: XCARET is as close as you can get other than a Universal. And we as consumers have to start to look at things that give us that same euphoria, that releases those same endorphins in our brain cells as going through a theme park, right? You're not necessarily going to be able to go to a theme park or duplicate the Disney experience, but you can duplicate the joy and the euphoria and that endorphin release that you get at a Disney, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what a vacation is all about. It's about experiences. It's not necessarily about theming. And that's what I want to talk about next. A lot of you that commented that XCARET is not the same. You're right, XCARET is not themed. Not really. It is very much a natural, almost like an eco park. They have, you know, some dinosaur things here and there, you know, where kids can kind of look at little dinosaur skeletons, but it's not really themed. It's very much based on a Mayan. It fits into the natural landscape of Playa del Carmen, right? It's very much a Mexican Mayan theme. A lot of it is built in the caves. It's very natural. It's almost, again, like Animal Kingdom Lodge. Kind of looks like Africa. Of course, in Mexico with XCARET, you're getting the real thing. It's built into the Mayan ruins. So when you talk about XCARET and it not being exactly the same because of things like theming and characters, you're right. You're absolutely right. Those of you that said that. And, you know, your kids might be looking for Disney theming. So I get that. And I love Disney theming. Again, I'm a sucker for anything that is themed. I like Vegas. I like going to Vegas because it's themed. I like Disney. I love anything that's themed. I remember when Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opened at Hollywood Studios, I loved it. I think Disney did a great job. I grew up, I was in elementary school when the original Star Wars came out. So like I'm that dude. I had all the Kenner toys, the X-Wing fighter, the Darth Vaders. I had a Boba Fett that you had to order from the back of I think I had to cut out something on the back of a cereal box and order it because they didn't sell a Boba Fett action figure back then in the stores. So I get it. I love Disney theming. I always think Disney has done a great job. I will say I don't think they do as good a job as they used to. I think, for example, the Riviera Resort is nice. I don't know that it necessarily has blown my socks off when I've looked at it, when I've walked through it. And I also think Disney is taking advantage of their theming. They know that they own all of this great intellectual, property, all of these. They own Disney princesses. They own Star Wars. They own Marvel, right? They own obviously the classic Disney characters. I told you before, Chase really loved Donald Duck. He also loved like Phineas and Ferb. Disney owned that. So they take advantage of that. They want you to have this emotional tie to Star Wars like I do, right? Or to, I also grew up loving Spider-Man. At the same time, I'm not gonna join the cult because of that. At a certain point, the theming isn't as important as the experience. And I feel like we're missing out on the experience. For example, let me give you guys an example. I love Star Wars. I've been to Hollywood Studios many times since they opened Galaxy's Edge. I've never ridden Rise of the Resistance, not one time. When I've gone there, either it has been broken down or you have to do that queuing system where you have to get in the queue early in the morning, and I always miss it. I just, at this age in my life, I think I consider myself a kid at heart, but I'm also an adult. Like, I'm only gonna go so far to experience a theme park ride. And what you have to do to ride something like Rise of the Resistance, or a lot of these new rides. I remember it took us years to ride Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I think we rode, the first time we rode Seven Dwarfs Mine Train was summer of 2021. We went during the summer, no, I think it was 2020. And the reason we were able to ride it is because the park was basically empty because of what was going on in the world at that time. So as much as I love Star Wars, if I can't ride Rise of the Resistance, I've ridden Smuggler's Run, it's great, but that's only gonna take me so far. At the end of the day, I need time off from work. I need to decompress. I need to be away from things that cause me stress, like trying to get into virtual queues to get on rides and rides breaking down. So the solution here, because again, we want to offer solutions, it's the previous solution that I talked about with crowds. The parks need to be bigger. They just need to be bigger. There needs to be more ride uptime. The reason the rides tend to break down, and I really do think the rides break down more than they used to. Let me know in the comments if you think that the parks are just overused. There are too many people riding the rides too much. Again, as an engineer, I would just say it's just wear and tear. And that's a lot of maintenance. I've been at the park countless times where a ride breaks down and you see the maintenance guys rushing to the back to try to fix the ride. They're just gonna wear these parks down. And I feel like Disney is taking advantage and overplaying their hand with all of the theming. Yeah, I love that you guys have Star Wars and Marvel, and the Disney princesses are great. I like how they're very diverse and you have all these Disney princesses and you can be into that. I love the classic Disney characters, but I didn't mind XCARET. I didn't mind the natural setting that XCARET offered. And I don't think, obviously I don't have small children. I think if I had a young child, a toddler in elementary school, I don't think they would have missed Donald Duck or Spider-Man. Or Star Wars so much that they would not have enjoyed XCARET. I think the pools, they had stuff for small children to do at the pools. They had kiddie pools, they had activity centers. They had things that didn't require theming that were a lot of fun. And I think some people will argue, the people that are definitely not in the Disney cult, is look, I don't want theming. I want a natural, beautiful park. I want a natural landscape.
And so as I'm waiting here for Eric to zoom by, this thing just crawled up out of nowhere. Wow.
And that's one of the things that I think Disney can improve if they were to build out the parks. Give me more of a meandering, natural park feel. Our favorite park for years has always been Epcot, and the reason we love Epcot is because it's very big. You never really feel claustrophobic. It is very park-like in the park sense of the word. It's lush, a lot of flowers, a lot of greenery. That's one of the reasons Epcot has always been our favorite park. But even now, Epcot is starting to show the crowds, especially with all of the recent construction that they've done. I also think some of the theming is lacking because Disney waited a long time to do a lot of these big projects. I saw Epcot was getting a little bit long in the tooth probably 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. Like, I still liked it, but I'm like, a lot of these buildings are getting old. The building that Figment is in, the buildings up front that housed a lot of the high-tech exhibits, and I feel like Disney waited way too long to build things like Guardians of the Galaxy, right? So now they're kind of paying for it. They're building Tron, they're building Guardians of the Galaxy. The Disney World Railroad is not up and running because of Tron. So you're just missing out on a lot of the theming. The next thing I want to talk about, which is related to theming, is overall experience. What is the experience you get? And this is probably the most important thing when you take a Disney World vacation today. I don't want to beat up on Disney. This isn't an all negative video. I do think, again, there's nothing like Disney in the world, Disney World in the world. And I do think it still offers a great experience and something that is unique. However, if I compare it to our XCARET vacation and some of the other vacations we've taken here recently, I do feel like Disney's kind of crossed the chasm or jumped the shark when it comes to things you have to do to plan a Disney vacation. Now, you've always had to be a little bit of a planner, I think most of us, to go to Disney and really enjoy it. But I think now having to make reservations to go to theme parks is a bit much. I think having to book a certain number of nights at a hotel is a bit much. I think the Genie and Lightning Lane system is a bit much. One of the things I talked about when we went to XCARET is they actually don't want you using maps and mobile apps and use your phone, because their thought is, we want you to be in the moment. If you're looking down at your phone or at a map, you're missing on all this natural beauty that XCARET has to offer. And I think Disney World could learn a little bit from that. I don't mind a little bit of a mobile app, but I don't want to have to be overusing a system like Genie to where I'm always looking at my phone. For example, when I go on vacation, like a lot of you, I get my work email on my phone, and I try to avoid looking at work emails while I'm on vacation. I really try to unplug. If I'm constantly breaking out my phone, and maybe I need to have better discipline. Let me know if you have discipline in the comments. I'm going to be tempted to look at my work emails, or just email in general, not even work, right? It could be just my regular email account. And I want to try to stay off of my phone. I don't want to be looking at emails or alerts. Now, you can turn all that stuff off, right? But I just think it's human nature. At XCARET, I really didn't feel the need to ever look at my phone. Right? It didn't draw me into that addiction. We're all a little bit addicted to our phones, but XCARET allowed me to step away from that a little bit. Let me know in the comments if you're able to get away from your phone addiction while you're on vacation. And I guess what I'm saying is, I think Disney is continuing to encourage that phone addiction. I think Disney staff is stretched really, really thin. It's interesting, when all of this started happening, when the world kind of went into crisis a couple of years ago, and they talked about the layoffs, I remember me and my wife saying, man, Disney's laying off a lot of people, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get all those folks to come back. And I think the chickens have kind of come home to roost. I think Disney is back popular again because, again, you can't really go overseas and you have limited vacation options. And I think there's not enough folks to maintain the park, to pick up trash, to clean hotel rooms, to clean the parks. And these folks work hard. Like, that's a hard, difficult job. And I just don't think there's enough people to do it. I think we're getting too much exposure to trash and too much to the back lots, right? We have to leave and exit the park through the back lots. It takes away from the experience. Again, I don't mind a little bit of planning. I go back to paper fast passes, and even when there were no fast passes, I go back to that. I didn't mind paper fast passes. It was fine. Personally, I've always been a big fan of the Universal Express Pass system. I just think it's better. I like the way Universal does it, where if you stay at certain hotels, you also get an Express Pass. I know Disney kind of has never wanted to do that, but I don't know that Genie and Lightning Lane is the answer. Disney kind of ended up doing it anyway. They kind of ended up creating an Express Pass anyway. They nickel and dime you to death. Whereas at Universal, again, I buy one express pass. It's good for the whole day. I don't have to look down at my phone. I don't have to reserve rides. So I don't know that Genie and Lightning Lane is the answer. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. If you've used Genie and Lightning Lane, let me know. What are the solutions? It's going to be the same as what I've said. Ride uptime needs to be more. The parks need to be bigger. Give me more green space. Come up with a new park reservation system. But again, I think that's hard to do because there just aren't enough rides. I think Genie and Lightning Lane and things like that are putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. What they're trying to do is move around deck chairs on the Titanic. The parks aren't big enough. They can't handle the capacity. So let me throw this mobile app at you guys and it'll kind of rearrange those deck chairs on the Titanic and make it seem like you can reserve rides and do things, but you still end up waiting all day. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if you had good luck with Genie, the Lightning Lane, and if you think they do a good job with the experiences today at Disney World. So the next thing I want to talk about is price. Now you're probably saying, well, Eric, didn't you talk about value already? But remember, value is different from price. Value is, do you think you got your money's worth? In other words, you might have spent $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 on a vacation, which is a lot of money, but you might feel like, and hopefully you feel like you got your money's worth. Again, Disney vacations have never been cheap, but I always felt like you got your money's worth. When I talk about price, which is what I'm going to talk about now, price is just, do I have the money? Do I have to take out a second mortgage on my home or sell a kidney to go on vacation? Is it even realistic? So to talk about price, I think we got to talk about the elephant in the room, which is not Dumbo in this case, but it is the new Star Wars hotel, or Star Wars themed hotel, which I believe is called the Galactic Star Cruiser. When you start talking about $6,000 a night for a family of 2 or 3 people to spend 3 or 4 nights at a hotel, we're getting into sums of money that are just, when you look at the rate of inflation, when you look at what the average American family brings in, it's just not doable. It's something that the average family just can't do, and you don't want to go into too much debt to go on vacation. I looked at the start of this video, you know, one of our, we've stayed at all different types of Disney resorts. We stayed at value resorts, we stayed at moderate, we've stayed at the high-end luxury resorts. We stayed at them all. Our favorite value resort is going to be Art of Animation. We stayed, the first resort my wife and I ever stayed at when we were in college, we were dating, was All-Star Sports. But our favorite value resort is Art of Animation. Love that resort, that and Pop Century. Love that whole area. That used to be the value resort. I looked it up online right before the start of this video. It was around $260 for a Little Mermaid room, which is like their most basic room. That's a lot of money for a value resort. You can go off property and stay at a Marriott Suites, you know, Marriott Homewood Suites, or a Hilton resort. I'm a Hilton guy. I stay at Hilton resorts when I travel for business and also for vacation. A lot of good Marriott and Hilton resorts for $150, $200 a night and get a whole suite. It's not hard to do. And again, I'm going to link 2 things below just to repeat this. I'm going to link our Disney on a Dime video series, and I'm going to link a newsletter that we put out last year that has some great value resorts. $260 is not a value resort. That is not cheap. To me, that is moderate hotel pricing. And you're paying $260 for what really is a motel. The value resorts, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, they're really motels because they open to the outside. They don't have a central hallway like a hotel. Disney was very smart. They basically took like a Motel 6 design and just themed the heck out of it to make all these value resorts. I think Cabana Bay at Universal is the same way, but the rooms open to the outside. Now, I don't have, again, Art of Animation, one of my favorite resorts, and so is Cabana Bay over at Universal. They're beautiful. $260 a night, I don't know about that one. And then you have to pay to park at these resorts. That is just ridiculous. And to be fair to Disney, some of this isn't just a Disney thing. Some of this is I don't like the direction that the hotel industry is going in general, and I think Disney needs to elevate themselves above the hotel industry in general. I think hotels need to stop doing resort fees. That is ridiculous. If I have to pay it, it's not a fee. Can I not use the gym and then don't have to pay, and then I don't have to pay the resort fee? Can I not use the pool and then not have to pay the resort fee? right? Charging people to park, just charge me what the hotel room costs. Don't nickel and dime me. It looks cheap. And again, that goes back to value. Don't do things that make it look like you're nickeling and diming your customers, especially if you're supposedly going after this upper echelon market. If you're staying at a Disney deluxe resort and you're staying for, I think to do a good Disney trip, you need to do at least 5 full days, so that's 6 nights. And you're buying theme park tickets, and you're going out to eat, which you are, and you're buying plane tickets and or driving, gas is extremely expensive. You can spend $10,000 easily, 5 figures, easily. For that amount of money, you can go, and these are all things we've done as a family. You can go to a national park and experience like the real Wilderness Lodge. You can go to the Grand Canyon and Yosemite, which are both breathtakingly beautiful. You go to XCARET, you can go to Atlantis over in the Bahamas. You can go to Europe. We went to Europe back in 2018, had a great time. I think that trip we took to Europe to the UK and France would be cheaper than it would be to go to Disney right now and stay at a deluxe resort and go to all of the theme parks. Hey, you can look at Dubai in a real African safari. I think, now that's gonna require a lot of planning, but I just think there's a lot of competition. I think Disney becomes its own competition at this point. For 10K, you need to look at Aulani, right? We did Aulani a few years ago, had a great time, go to Hawaii, right? You're obviously not gonna have all the theme parks that you would have at Disney World, but you can stay at Aulani or the Four Seasons and still get real natural theming, or maybe even the Aulani Disney theming. Do I pay $10,000 to go on a real African safari in Africa, or do I pay $10,000 to do the Wild Africa Trek, which we've done, we'll have pictures of that, the Wild Africa Trek, and go to Animal Kingdom? We used to go to Disney and vacation when Bonnet Creek, and those of you that are familiar with Disney know when the Wyndham Bonnet Creek first opened, not the main hotel, but the timeshare, when it first opened, which is in the Bonnet Creek Resort area. I think when we first started staying there, they had like 2 or 3 towers. The towers were only like 4 stories high or 5 stories. Now they have like a 13, 14 story tower. But when they first built it, we would literally stay at the Bonnet Creek Wyndham for $500 a week. We would go to eBay and people would be selling their timeshares that they couldn't use, and you would pay like $500, $600 and stay literally for 4 or 5 full days. You would get a suite with a full kitchen, 2, 3 bedrooms, right? You can't get that kind of value anymore, but you can stay at other hotels, Las Palmeras, Margaritaville. So I just think from a pricing perspective, Disney is just straight up pricing people out of going. I think a lot of people are going to continue to go to Orlando, and this is what I would recommend, but you just find other things to do outside of the theme park. A lot of you have said Disney is doing this on purpose. They're trying to push people out of the theme parks, right? Maybe the quote unquote poor people out of the theme parks, which I think is wrong. But then I got to ask, okay, if you're trying to get people that are willing to spend 5 figures on a vacation, are you able to compete with a cruise or going to Europe or going to Africa, right? Or going to Asia or going to Hawaii or going to Mexico? Are you able to compete with those types of vacations? Because people that are of a certain demographic have a lot of options. Let me know if you think they are able to compete in the comments. My solution is real simple. I think Disney has to cut costs. And I know that's tough. I know that's very tough for Disney to do, but they've got to do it in smart, thoughtful ways. I think there are ways to drive attendance, keep people in the parks, but not also just nickel and dime and just charge for everything and make it so prohibitively expensive. So what do I still love about Disney, and why are my wife and I still going to continue to go down to Orlando and enjoy ourselves and do lives and all those things? Well, you know, for one thing, we love Disney Springs, for example. I remember when they did the whole Downtown Disney makeover and changed it to Disney Springs. I still call it Downtown Disney by mistake sometimes too. My wife has to catch me. I don't have a lot of complaints about Disney Springs. I really can't think of any. I like the fact that it's free parking. And you know, at the end of the day, what makes Disney Springs great? It's big. And it goes back to what I said Disney needs to do with the theme parks. When Disney made the transformation from Downtown Disney to Disney Springs, they made it a lot bigger. There's a lot more room to stretch out, to not be on top of people. Even though Disney Springs will get just amazingly crowded, I do think there are places and things that you can do where you don't quite feel so bunched up and congested. Now, sometimes it's just ridiculous. Sometimes it's just crowded and there's nothing you can do and you just gotta go somewhere else. But for the most part, I enjoy Disney Springs. It's usually okay if you go back during the day or go during the day. It gets hairy weekend nights, I think, is when it gets kind of hairy, especially during the holidays and special events. But not a lot of complaints about Disney Springs. I love the Skyliner. We've done a few lives from the Skyliner. I think that was a very creative idea. I think that brought back some of the Disney magic that was maybe kind of missing. I think it's very well themed. I think if I were to stay back on property, I would do a resort that was on the gondola line. I really love the gondola. Don't really have a lot of complaints about the gondola. The other thing I would say I really like, I think the Disney employees still do a great job, especially, and when I say great job, given the circumstances, given the amount of stress, given what they have to deal with from customers now. People are a lot more demanding, people are a lot more on edge, people probably aren't as polite as they used to be. I think the employees do a great job. Now, I will say this, and this goes back to Disney has too many rules now. There was one situation, we had gone to Animal Kingdom. This was, I think, last year or year before, and we were supposed to make a park reservation. Now, I could have sworn I reserved Animal Kingdom, but I guess I didn't, or it didn't show up on the Magic Band. And so the lady, when we, scanned our band at the entrance, she came over and she was like, "Hey, you guys don't have a reservation." I'm gonna be honest, I think she could have been a little bit nicer about it, but I'm gonna chalk that up to it was stressful. And again, I just think they're putting a lot on these employees. That's a tough job for her to have to say, constantly tell people, "Hey, you don't have a reservation for this park. You might not be able to attend this park today." That's a stressful job. They're putting too much on the employees. Now, in that case, we had no issues. We were able to stay at Magic Kingdom and enjoy our day at the park, but that's an example where I think Disney is putting too much on the employees. I think having housekeeping clean every other day, and again, that's not a Disney thing. A lot of hotels are going in that direction and I don't like it. And some of this is, look, I know Disney has to fit into the larger socioeconomic landscape. We're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with a worker shortage. I get all that, and I hope we as a society get back to lower inflation. I hope we get back to paying people a fair wage, so that we can move on. We need these people. We need housekeepers. We need maintenance workers. I worked at a theme park. I worked at Six Flags throughout college. Loved it. Had a great experience, and I made good money at that time, especially to be a college student. So I know Disney is dealing with that, but I feel like Disney has the resources, the brain power, the finances to be able to deal with it a little bit better, or start to work towards doing better. I think the Disney hotels are still, pretty good. I really like what they did with Coronado Springs. That's not necessarily a new renovation anymore. It's been around, it's been renovated for a while, but I still like to hang out and go to Coronado Springs. I think they did a decent job with Riviera. I think it could be a little bit better, but I like the fact that it's on the Skyliner line. And I do think at the end of the day, there is nothing quite like Disney. I do think it's still a unique experience. I still think Orlando is a great place to vacation. This was our first time at XCARET for the holidays, and I enjoyed it. It was beautifully decorated. I did miss, this was also our first time in a long time not being in Orlando for the holidays in Disney. I did miss some of the Disney theming that you get during the holidays. I hope that Disney continues to bring things back like holiday theming. I think they recently brought back the Wild Africa Trek. We did that many years ago. I had a great time doing that. I'm glad they're bringing things back. I hope they continue to do that. I think they're doing a good job with that, bringing back some of the entertainment, some of the other activities. Again, I also think to keep down theme park crowds, and we've always been a big proponent of this, you have to give people something else to do at resorts. Bring back boats where I can rent a boat or rent a bike or do a Wild Africa Trek or do a backlot tour. Bring those things back to give people alternatives. And if you're trying to bring in people that make more money, they'll pay the extra money to do that, right? So that would be my advice to Disney. Hey, you got to give all of these high rollers that you guys want, you got to give them something that's a little bit of a unique experience. But those are my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I think I am kind of still in the Disney cult. Like, I'm still gonna go, but I definitely see that there are other things. And to be honest, we've always kind of thought that, the first probably 7 or 8 years we were going to Disney, we were always on property, but we quickly realized that there was more value to be had staying off property. So I've always kind of been 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the cult. I think my family is the same, my wife, my son. But let me know in the comments, are you part of the Disney cult? Are you like Disney for life? I'll never give up on Disney. Have you never been into Disney? Are you like, I've never seen what the hype is about, like I don't get it at all, I don't see why you people go to Disney? Are you 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Maybe you work at Disney or have worked at Disney and know how the sausage is made. Let me know in the comments. I love to hear your feedback. And yeah, I will see you guys hopefully sometime this year on a Disney travel vlog. I don't know if it'll be spring, summer, winter, fall, but we'll definitely be doing some more Disney lives and Disney travel vlogs this year. Peace.